We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for your voice in my headset, and specifically, and that's on friendships. And this section is on marriages. So you'd naturally think that, I mean, if you're at a level 4 friend, you know, it's obviously your spouse, or is it? Um, where your visions interconnect. And last week we had a very intriguing podcast. I told Patrick it can take 100 podcasts to get one good one, or maybe 1,000. I think last week was one of the 1,000. This one's going to be like one in 10,000. It will be. And so, does a wife want, her husband to share his feelings? And so that's a really interesting one. Um, what I've got today, and Patrick will share what he's got, but what I've got is like it's a collage of all kinds of different things. Like there's a friend of mine, and he said he didn't mind me sharing this, but his counselor, therapist, whatever you want to call it, said that he had, I think it was emotional, like I don't know, relational of a 1 year old, and and I love that he said, yeah, no, you can share that. So he's, so that's really cool. I don't think he's the only one. Patrick and I have some mutual people we know, let's say men that are over 30, maybe over 40, and it's like they seem like they act like 3 year olds or 1 year old. And it's just so that's one. Two is Patrick and I, we were talking earlier, and there's a lot more money in helping people than healing. And then another thought is if somebody doesn't heal from something, it's like it stunts their mental brain development. And so it's like they can't grow because it's like they're a relational midget. They're at their ceiling. And what happens, and you'll never ever hear this in Christian circles, it says in the Bible, be not unequally yoked. What if you're married and one of the spouses is growing and the other one's not? You're gonna Maybe you were equally yoked when you got married, but maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30, longer, all of a sudden you're unequally yoked because one's growing and one's not growing. Um, and so, and then does that lack of growth because you haven't healed, is that one of the leading causes of Alzheimer's? Like, you know, and then, um, and then there was gaslighting, which is pretty cool, versus a pot stirrer. And then there's this fascinating thing I'm running into with a number of people in my life where it's like they know, I don't know. I don't want to say they know they've done something wrong. They know something's not up. They know something's up. They know that like something's not good, but they won't ask it. They ignore it. It's like they act as if nothing's happened. Like it's almost like putting your head in the sand, like an ostrich. You put your head in the sand, or it's almost like a little boy or girl who's, you know, potty training, and they poop their pants and they go hide, and it's like, why do you do that? But it's almost like that. And so, like, these are questions that are just from the continuation of this of last week's. I don't know. It's all these pieces that have come from this. Oh, and then Patrick and I, like, maybe the most important thing is I went ahead and realized that when I was 15 years old that I was I was heading towards a path. I was close to being a pathological liar. I lied about everything. I mean, everything. I just lied to lie. Didn't even have to, just did it. And so what happened is my dad was a pastor, so we were at Faith Baptist Bible College, and we were, going and playing the gym, and you had to have not street shoes, but gym shoes, so you didn't, scuff up, you didn't mess up the wood floor. And my dad asked me, I'm going to the gym. He says, where are you going? I said, to the gym. He said, do you have your gym shoes? I said, they're in the car. I'm going to pick them up. They weren't in the car. I had no intention at all. So just lying, just no intention at all of picking them up, just not going to do it. What I'm hoping is between Patrick's and my stories, it's almost like my story is half the story and his story is the other half. And there's some people on this podcast, and I'm not saying on live, I'm saying, they're listening. They might be, I don't know. You get to decide for yourself that this podcast will heal you and change you for the rest of your life. And it has the capability of doing that. And if you share it with somebody else, it literally has the chance of saving their lives or their marriage or relationships. It's that powerful. And so my dad went ahead and said, hey, I said, no, I'm going to get it in the car. He said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I know they're in the car. He's like, you're positive? And I said, yes, Dad. And then he looked at me and he pointed in the corner, and my gym shoes were in the corner. Honestly, I don't remember ever getting disciplined. And I realized at that time that if I didn't change, I would become a pathological liar, and my entire life would be ruined. Everything. And I changed at the age of 15. Now, Patrick and I were talking, and so my biggest concern is that people who are listening to this podcast will say, well, that's not me. I think the longer it takes us to realize that we're lying to not only other people, but ourselves, first and foremost, the harder it is to go ahead and turn it around. And so Patrick has a fascinating story. So, do you remember when you were a child and you lied?
Me? Yes.
Anybody? Yeah. Everybody on.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a life-changing story like I did at the age of 15 where I changed total direction? So if you're on the podcast and you're saying, I remember lying as a child, did you ever have a 180 degree where you went from this and to this? If you didn't, you still may be lying. More important than anybody lying to anybody other than it's lying to yourself. And Patrick shared a story with me earlier, and I want him to share it. And I hope you all don't say, well, that's a nice story for Patrick. Because I think the hardest thing for people to do is to be honest with themselves. So, Patrick, if you could share your story, that would be awesome.
Okay. Actually, I mean, I've had this for quite a while, but Mark asked me the question some time ago when I had told him that I had made a very early commitment in my life to not lie to myself, no matter what. That was a distinction. I could understand and recognize that I might lie to somebody else. I might, but I made a real commitment to not be willing to lie to myself. And so Mark asked me, well, what event in your life, when did that happen? And what event could have possibly precipitated that kind of commitment? So the story was that I was probably about 19 years of age. And at that time, and Mark, I've thought about it since you asked me these questions. The truth is I was not living in a way where I could say that I was a good person. I just wasn't living that way. And I knew I wasn't. And I was, being reckless and being 19 and being full of myself and all the things that 19-year-olds can be. And I can honestly say, and I did at that time say, I'm just really not a good person. Okay. Well, I had this dream, kind of one of those dream vision things that changes your life for the rest of your life. And this one was one of those. And in the dream, it was just this dream that there was this huge, big, it was a diamond like thing. It was hanging in the sky. It was huge. And it fell to the ground and the pieces went everywhere. They were all over. And in the dream, I'm down there looking at these things and I realized that all I have to do is pick up the pieces of that huge shattered jewel and I would be wealthy. I mean, I would have everything. I'd be successful. All I had to do was pick them up. And in that dream, the recognition and the realization is that the start of all that, picking up those pieces, were about just bending over and doing it, which to me translated in don't lie to yourself. The truth is the jewel. The truth is everywhere. It's all around. And all I have to do is pick it up and put it in my pocket. That's all I have to do. And that translated into my mind that I would just never lie to myself. Now, Mark, I would have to say that as I've thought through that even more, I can't say that I've been able to 100% keep that commitment, but I can say that over the years, there are times when I've realized that I was lying to myself and I was able to go right back to that original commitment and say, oh, that's not going to happen. It was a shift and a change. And each of those times that happened, it was a major life change. Everything changed from that point. So the original commitment was a lifetime of saying, oh, when I discover that I am lying to myself, I am not going to do that any longer. So there are any number of illustrations of that, but there have been marked points in my life when I came to a realization. Like, for example, at one time I realized that I was not being a good husband. It was devastating to me. I was absolutely convinced that I was being. And when that realization came to me, it was a bit of a personal crisis, but it allowed me to turn and go different directions. So that's my story.
See, this is just fascinating to me. Like Patrick you're 63?
I'm 66.
66 years old. So
old.
Young. Yeah, 66 years.
Okay.
And so he and I were talking and I said, you do know you're a control freak, right? And he's like, I'm not a control freak. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. Now I'm used to that happening. And it seems like the older people get, often the more stubborn, more locked, I'm like, there's no way he's just not going to see it. He's just not going to see it. And I think it was like a couple of weeks later, he said, I've been thinking about what you said, and I realize I am. And I'm like, I looked at Patrick different, not because he thought one way, but then he really looked at it and he really considered, which most people don't. They just dismiss things. And it's like, how does he do that? How do we help other people do that? An observation that I've made is that all four personalities can lie to themselves. Like the driver can lie to him or herself. But it seems to be harder for them because they're often driven by goals and vision and passion. And it's like vision, it's like, this is what you need to do. And if you lie to yourself, like when you're picking up all those diamonds and they're the truth, like how can you change and how can you grow? Like if you've been damaged, if you've been hurt and haven't healed, it's almost like you black out. You can't grow. You cannot grow because you haven't been healed. Like your growth in that particular, literally physically in your brain, you can't. The expressive will lie to themselves. Um, some, they'll say how exciting and energetic and fun and funny and everything. And everybody besides their spouse may go ahead and believe them, but their spouse is going to know the truth. The analytic will often lie to themselves that they're always right. They have enough data to make it look like they're right. They're really smart when they're really not. I mean, they are in a very small piece. But of the four personalities, it seems to me that the amiable is the one that lies the most to themselves. Now, in understanding the science behind this, the amiable is the natural chameleon. So they will go ahead and be in whatever environment they're in. So if it's analytic, they'll morph into that, driver, expressive. And so they're always trying to please people. They're always trying to make people happy. When you ask them a question, they'll literally think, what answer do you want? How about the truth? They don't, like, to them, it's almost nothing is about the truth. Everything is about making somebody happy. And so it's like they don't even know. So they make people happy. From small children, they're always trying to make somebody happy. And so they've done studies at Stanford and Yale, top schools, colleges, and that when there's a lie in the brain attacks that lie vigorously. And they can measure this with brain instrument tools, and the brain attacks that lie. But every time we lie to ourselves, the brain attacks it less and less until there's no longer an attack. It's just pathological liar. We just become a pathological liar. And the thing that's strange is groups of people. When you get in a group of people, the group of people wants you to lie. They teach you. And my dad was a Christian, Baptist pastor. So I'll just, share my observation. It's not a judgment of Baptist. It's just an observation. And that is, they teach their children to lie. Like, they don't want the truth, and groups don't want the truth. It's almost like everybody in the group, and in Bonhoeffer's The Theory of Stupidity, he talks about this, where it's harder, it's easier to deceive yourself in a group of people, similar group of people, than on your own. And so I wonder if this connects into Alzheimer's. I'm serious, dead serious, because when you think about the brain, if you go day after day, week after week, month after year, decade after decade, and you're always lying to yourself, eventually, like, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's true and what's not true. And so you don't remember, you can't grow. And if the brain isn't growing, it's dying. It's like a tree. If a tree is not growing, it's dying. I think the brain is like that too. Nora, as co-author in Your Voice in My Headset, you and I have had many conversations about this. Thoughts or questions or insights, Nora?
Um, Not really. This is all very interesting. I'm just trying to take everything in and yeah, not right now.
Yeah, it's a lot. Mary, thoughts, questions, insight.
I never thought of Alzheimer's that way. That might be what causes it. Um, it's definitely a new thought, a new concept for me, but it does make sense to me.
Right? And Patrick, he's like, I've never thought of that before. You make a whole bunch of money on helping people. There's no money in healing. Like none of the big pharma, they're not looking to heal people. There's no ongoing cash stream. They don't want to keep people healed. They want to help people. Psychiatrists, psychologists, they don't want people to be healed. They want to help them. There's so much more money. I mean, if you could heal somebody in 1 or 2 visits, I mean, imagine what kind of a marketing machine you'd have to have. Pastors, they don't want people, because then, so any group of people, they don't want the people in the group. They want the people in the group to be hurt and not healed at a heart level. Because as soon as you're healed at a heart level, then you have freedom. Unbelievable, amazing freedom.
So how do you go about to help people? Like, let's say you had somebody that, struggled with lying or whatever. Like, how do you help that person to see it for themselves?
And that's the thing. That's the thing we're trying to figure out.
I have a thought.
Yep.
We talked last week about feelings. Wouldn't it be reasonable to think that however we approach the feelings of others, we first approach our own feelings in the exact same way? If we are consumed with the feelings of others, are we not first concerned with our own feelings? And is that not, a stumbling block for us? Because don't we recognize that when others are guarding their own feelings and elevating that to the highest order of priority, then everything else, then the truth, humility, all the things that, changing mind, changing thoughts, changing even the way we see the world, those things won't happen if we are guarding our feelings. And so that's an internal issue. I haven't thought this through either, but maybe, Mark, you can consider that when you're looking through the negatives of each of the, the downside to each of the personality types, and how that might work to, that it creates a set of walls that keep them confined to prison.
And I think that people, like, our feelings in America, it's like people think their feelings reflect other people, but it doesn't. Our feelings are totally ourselves. Somebody else does something, it triggers a feeling. We think that person's responsible for that feeling. And it's like, so I think that people get mixed up. I think rather than like the feelings, people think the feelings reveal the inadequacies and the flaws in other people. I think our feelings reveal the flaws and inadequacies in ourselves.
Right.
I think that people get so consumed with their own feelings, they can't even think about the feelings of others. And I think women tend to go ahead and fall into this trap far more than men do. I think men are trained, and just being a man, you don't want to disappoint your mom, so you go ahead and focus in on her feelings or your sisters, and just becomes like an irritant. Then it's your girlfriend, and then it's your wife, and then it's your 4 daughters. And it's like, so what you do is, I don't know, I guess you could say stifle your own feelings, or is it that you just discipline your own feelings and control your own feelings and say, you know what, are my feelings really all that important? I mean, when I was 59, 2 years ago, it was revealed that my feelings were important. And it was miserable. I went down the path and I said, I'm going to experiment. And the 2 people, it's funny, the 2 people, my son and my brother, separate, they both said, Mark, your feelings are important. But then when I got ticked at them and I said, these are my feelings about you, they didn't care a whit about my feelings, and they're the ones that told me my feelings were important. And my wife and daughter, it's like my feelings. Well, if my feelings are important, ladies, here's my feeling. They have no idea what to do with my feelings. Now, in defense of them, when you have a guy that, hasn't really expressed his feelings for 59 years, there's probably a lot pent up there. You might not want to, open up that can of worms. But what I discovered is the quantum feeling model, and feelings lead to entitlement, self-righteousness, and victimhood. And maybe next podcast, there are some new things that I'm discovering with Nora about people caring about us. Like, where do we get addicted when somebody actually cares about us? Do we get addicted to that? And we just want more and more. Isn't it just a lot easier to realize nobody gives a rat's ass about it? Like, now again, don't take me serious, or do. Rosanna, your thoughts or questions?
So I think that as amiables, we think how we would feel if we had to tell somebody something. And so sometimes it's hard for us to go ahead, and plus we don't like to look bad either. So if it's something that keeps us in that realm, I think it's harder for us to tell the truth. Would never want to tell somebody that, something that they were wearing was ugly, because I'd never want somebody to tell me that.
So let me just try to understand this. Are you saying the amiable is just kind of self-centered, narcissistic, think to the center of the world, and everybody thinks like they think? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you put it that way, I guess. I mean,
I'm not supposed to laugh, right?
No, you can laugh.
Okay.
I think it's just.
So I have a question for you. I mean, you talked about controlling one's own feelings and all of that, suppressing one's own feelings. But does the word manage your own feelings, is that somewhat different?
I think manage and discipline, I think, are similar. I don't think suppressing the feelings. I think disciplining our feelings or managing our feelings, those I think are both good words to understand. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling? What are other people feeling? How do we consider how do we consider, I think a husband, a good husband, let's just say that. Let's make sure we're clear. A good husband is going to understand, a great husband's going to understand his own feelings better than his wife and kids and all of them combined, I think. And then he is going to put his children and his wife's feelings above his own on a consistent, regular basis. I think a great wife is going to go ahead and encourage the husband. She's going to be so good. She's going to understand his feelings. She will consider his feelings. She will know him so well. This is theory, not a reality. So yes, I think managing is a great word. Disciplining. Nora, swinging back to you, and how do you help somebody? I think you've got to get them out of, the present right now, the immediate, and looking into the future. I think you have to look into the future. I think this is why the driver has the advantage in that particular area of their life. Is they got to see the future. If you can see the future and you can understand, yes, that person's going to be maybe angry with you. Yes, they're going to be disappointed with you. Yes, they might even be mad with you, but they will respect you and they will love you because they can trust you rather than you playing games with them. I mean, it's just weird. There have been a lot of flashbacks of my youngest sister probably 15 plus years ago, where she was not nice to my daughter, Angela. And I think she called me on my birthday and saying happy birthday to me, and that was her way of apologizing. I'm pretty sure. And I feel bad for her because I think in her own mind, she didn't want to apologize. She didn't want to say, I am sorry that I did this. And so because she didn't realize she was wrong, or she didn't acknowledge that she was wrong in what she did, I think that has poisoned or handicapped her immensely in many things.
That is the injury that needs to be healed, is kind of your orientation.
I think so. I think if somebody doesn't go ahead and recognize it, now what's better than apologizing for hurting someone?
Actually being sorry that you hurt them?
And what's even better than that?
Repenting, turning.
And even better than that, not hurting them in the first place. But see, this is the thing, people. This is the protocol for an apology. This is why when Patrick showed me that, I'm like, this is genius. This is what I've been trying to communicate. But people will say they're sorry, and they'll just go right back and do the same thing again.
Right.
And so they don't learn. It's like they've been hurt, they haven't healed, so they can't change. And when you have one spouse changing and growing, like if they've been healed, because when your life vision is bigger than death, you get over stuff. You're like, I could be angry with this and this and this and this, but but angry, bitterness, like not healing, it takes so much energy.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you think it'd work the same way with what Patrick was saying about feelings? Do you think it works the same way with like people pleasers? Like if you're so consumed about pleasing other people, is it really that you're first of all concerned about pleasing yourself?
That's exactly right.
I agree.
That's exactly right. You're not doing it because you're a nice person. You're doing it because you're selfish.
So then, logically following, then what is the antidote?
The antidote is going to be, there's three of them. What's the antidote for entitlement? It's thankfulness. The antidote for self-righteousness is humility. The antidote for victimhood is ownership. It's taking ownership. Humility and thankfulness is like the triple antidote to keep you away from entitlement, self-righteousness, and victim. It's crazy on how these three interconnect too. Somebody who's entitled is a victim and they're self-righteous. And it's like, how can you be because a victim can feel better because they're not the one that's abusing somebody. So they love being a victim. So they put themselves into a situation where they would say they've been abused. The people that are kicking the crap out of them say, no, you deserve to have the crap kicked out of you. I'm just telling you. Like,
or better yet, you kick the crap out of yourself. We just let it happen.
Right. If somebody else is having to do it, like, yeah, it's like, and this is why it's so fascinating to me. At age 19, Patrick did that, and he saw a vision, and it's diamonds, and then it's there's truth all over the place, and it's just like, if whatever your belief of God is, a higher power, it's like the truth will set us free, which means that if we're not seekers of the truth, we're going to be enslaved. We just will.
Right. And the idea for me was that it's all around, it's everywhere. And, that is kind of an awareness thing, is the truth is everywhere. It's just in all kinds of pieces, but it's everywhere. That was to me a really important
Well,
thing.
that when you describe that, it's like when I run into a problem, there's three sources that I go to. One is I go to nature. I look at animals and trees and everything around me, because there's so much truth in nature. So much truth in nature. The other is small children and teenagers, because they'll be honest with you. They'll see things and they'll say things that adults won't. Tremendous things. And the third is the Bible, not church and not pastors, because my experience is they will often twist things for their own delusion and betterment. Like they think we won't even go down that path. And so it's just like it's just cool. Anybody else have anything else?
I don't think I do.
So, as we finish up this year and we go into next year, we talk about level 4 friendships, and it's like, how do we care about other people? How do we get people to care about themselves? Not selfishly like a lot of people do. And I tend to go ahead and be harder on husbands. And it's like, guys, if if you're talking to your wife about your feelings and how important, and she's not meeting like that kind of stuff, it's like, dude, you're missing the whole point of being a man. Like, you're missing the best parts of being a husband. You're missing the best parts of being a father. And I think when we're so focused and fixated on our own feelings that we can't see the other people's feelings, and when we see other people's feelings, I think it reveals our own. I think we're able to see things about ourselves that we've never been able to see before.
So I have one question that you can ponder for another broadcast.
Yeah.
If you are in pain, can you feel others' pain, empathize?
Are you talking emotional pain?
Yes. It could be physical. Physical is all part of it.
Yeah.
Can you feel for other? That's just a question to consider, because I've heard people say that they believe that you cannot. I don't know that.
I believe that it might be the only way you can make it through the pain. I think it may not, that's a profound, you may not be, when Jonathan's death, if I could go ahead and carry somebody else's load and some of their pain, it was crazy on how much my pain was lightened. So carrying other people's pain so I think when you're under so much pain, like the death of your son, suicide death, brutal suicide death, like we had been through, I think that the way that I've made it over the last 5 years is that I can carry other people's pain. I can care about their pain. And in caring about their pain, it brings healing and meaning to my own, and significance, where I don't see my pain as a negative. I see it as hard, but it's not bad. It's just hard. But when I'm carrying somebody else's pain, if I'm caring for somebody else, it just makes mine so much easier. But it definitely deserves another podcast. Share this with a couple other people. I think it's a little over 30 minutes. Share it with a couple other people. And you want a significant conversation. You want level 4 friendships. What's fascinating meeting is like Nora and I on our level 4. I don't know if I've ever put this much work into a friendship in 5.5 months. I'm guessing not. Time, energy, everything. But it doesn't seem like work to me. It's just fun. Like it's just like it seems like play. And so I think level 4 friendships, they give you far more energy than they cost you. I mean, so much. You put 100 pounds of energy into a level 4 and you'll get 500 or 1,000 pounds back. The amount of insight, the amount of self-awareness that you get in going through it, because there's so much trust. There's so much like you can share things with a level 4 that you're like, I don't know, I can share it with anybody else. But at level 4, somehow, and they'll take on it. Like sometimes they'll get beat up and bruised a little bit. Like they'll get beat up and bruised. Like, so share this with 2 other people that might be interested in a level 4 and talk about it. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.